This is the story of a lost neighborhood and of its people who did not want to go.
I don't want no money. I want my home. The old man is old. See how the old man is old? And I'm old. That's enough. I don't want to get out. I said to my two daughters, they don't want to get out too because they spend a lot of money. Plenty of money they spend in this place. We not get none to nobody. Never.
Hi, welcome to the West End Video Newsletter. Tonight's show we're doing a show about an old-time friend of mine who came into the museum and we started looking at what we had there. Bill Corcoran. He's Professor Bill Corcoran. He's at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, and he's putting together a website. And tonight we came into the museum, we started talking, and he was interested in developing a website at in Omaha, Nebraska, University of Nebraska in Omaha, and we started talking. And that was about a month ago, maybe.
Yeah, about a month ago.
Okay, and what made you do all this? What?
You know, it was pretty big accident. I actually came back to Boston because I had an interest to follow the original shoreline.
Oh, okay.
And then it took us right through the West End, and I was just overwhelmed with the fact that there was so much life there, and it was so small an area, and it was gone. Yeah. And so when we came back the second time, we went to the West End Library, and they told us about you and that they're going to develop the museum. And so we were hoping to get that, and I picked up a couple of books on the West End, and it started coming through. But after our first get-together, when we were lucky to find you, then it occurred to me that the internet is the greatest thing for what we'd like to do.
Yeah.
It's more flexible, and it reaches more people at a lower cost.
That's right.
And it just, and I said, this is the perfect thing for holding the West End in the memory.
Well, you know, a lot of us have this, they tore it down and we left, and there's sort of an empty space in a lot of us, okay? And a lot of us, what happens is that we fill that space by doing, like, I've been doing it with the TV show here and the newsletter and everything. And other people will do it in their own way, okay? But I think that's part of it, because I think when I was talking to you once, we were talking about Professor Mark Freed.
Yes.
And he was part of the psychological impact study, and he said that they found out that was one of the first times they found out that people could actually grieve for like buildings and things. So to heal that spot, right, a lot of us work this out in different ways.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of it.
But that's true, the memory we have associated with those locations. And when I looked at the photograph of the streets that you had, I remember sitting in each one of those streets.
That's right.
It was just, and then we talked about it.
Yeah, we had a lot of personal stories. You were talking about, matter of fact, you ran into Leo Pagano, who has...
Right, which I haven't seen for 50 years.
Right.
The first gang I was a member of.
Well, you know, I don't know if you say gangs. A lot of people in their minds have this connotation, and gangs is like people running around with bats and clubs. But, but it's more like our gang, you know, it's really a weakened sense of that. I mean, it really wasn't like
a generic group of association. That's what it was. Yeah.
Right. And in the West End, there was never gangs in the sense of like hierarchy. I mean, maybe someone was the leader through, you know, just the way it evolves. Somebody listens to and goes, "Let's go here," right? Everybody runs. But there was never a hierarchy, or anybody that was like the boss or whatever. It was strange in a way, because the West End had, you know, it was very parochial. I think I mentioned this before. If you went uptown, you went down to the corner and you said, "Come on, take a walk," because you wouldn't leave the West End without, you had to have 4 guys with you. Not that you were scared or anything. It wasn't a physical scaredness. It was just that the outside world was there, and you had.
But you know, when you said that, I did take walks alone. I did go a lot of places alone. I remember walking all the way down Charles River, all the way past Harvard several times, walking up the waterfront to the north end and stuff.
Well, I used to go down to the river at night. I used to love to sit down on, you know, the rocks that were on the, and I used to love to sit down on the river and just, you know, watch. It was so peaceful. The moonlight would be on the water, and Yeah, I'd be all by myself.
When it was the Charles Bank and when it had the
No,
benches there.
what?
When it had the benches along, when they called it the Charles Bank.
Before Storrow Drive.
Yeah, yeah.
Now as Storrow Drive comes around, there were two big hills there. Most people don't realize that that was built. It wasn't built by, what's his name? The great architect.
Olmsted?
Olmsted. It wasn't
Was it
built by
or
Olmsted.
Yeah.
But it was built by somebody else who was a noted architect.
Mm.
And I think in one of the first newsletters I wrote, I said they broke the clasp on Olmsted's emerald necklace, because that was a beautiful park.
Yeah.
Two big hills, that big oak tree that everybody, you remember that big oak tree?
I remember. Right.
Everybody must have climbed
Yeah.
that big oak tree at least once or twice in their
I
life.
cracked my tooth on that water
Oh, is it?
fountain, yeah.
I mean, the branches were so low, if you were 4 years old, you could jump up and grab a branch and climb up there. It was amazing. And then when I was a kid, they had boathouses down there. Remember they had boathouses down there?
Yeah,
You come
yeah.
in and,
Yeah. Actually, I learned to sail.
oh,
walking down
in the
there.
community, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was that was Joe Lee. Joe Lee started that. Matter of fact, one of the first shows we did was, I think it was like the 9th show we did was about Joe Lee and the Community Boat Club.
Yeah.
See, I didn't even realize how they started because it preceded me. I was growing up, that was already there. But in the late 30s, Joe Lee went around making boats. He grabbed these bunch of street urchins from the West End and they built boats. They built the boats, went down to the river,
Yeah.
and Joe Lee, taught him how to sail because he thought everybody should know how to sail.
Yes, yes.
And then as it became, I don't want to say professional, but as it became more refined, they ended up with that boathouse.
Yeah.
See, they were originally built on the roofs of buildings, right, and brought down and put into the river. It's really strange.
But you know how it happened to me? I was walking down, I think 9 or 10 years old, and some guy, I guess, what was his name? I forget his name right now, but he said, "Hey kid, do you want to learn how to sail?"
Okay.
I go, "Sure." and by the end of the afternoon, I was within the little islands there. I was sailing this boat.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember the guy.
I wasn't that good at it, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
Down there, Ed Pepper has been down there for a long time. Joe Solano was another long-time member down there that they were helped out. They've had different executive directors, but I don't remember exactly who. It could have been anywhere from Joe Lee to...
Yeah.
Joe Lee was the school
remember
committee
that.
guy for so many years.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Old Boston Brahmin. yeah.
The guy who taught me, his younger brother used to hang around with you, I think. Bill, matter of fact, I've seen his name in the newsletter. He donates Bill McGrath, I think. McGrath? and
Macaulay?
Macaulay, that's what Macaulay.
Oh, there was two. There was two. There was
Yeah.
Kenny and...
I think it's his older brother.
anyways, the older brother went to Mass Maritime. Kenny was in the first graduating class of the Air Force Academy. He was the first freshman in the school, first sophomore. They graduated out, and he became a pilot. But he won medals at the Silver Skates. You remember Silver Skates? They used to come to Boston.
Yeah.
He was really fast. He was a great hockey player. And
This was the oldest brother.
No, the middle brother, Kenny.
Kenny. Okay.
I'm trying to think of the older brother's name now. I don't remember. He went to Mass Maritime, and he was on
Well, that's
boats for a lot of
appropriate.
time. Yeah.
Teaching me how to sail.
And Billy, who lives in that building, well, he doesn't live in the building. He has an apartment there for his kid. He lives down on the Cape, but he comes up every so often. I just talked to him. He was in the Air Force Academy. I mean, the Naval Academy.
What building was that?
In the West End place.
Okay.
We're in the bottom floor, and
Yeah.
the top is.
Okay. Ah.
So they were family that always strived,
Yeah.
and they had a sister too, but I don't remember exactly. I think she was older than me, and I don't exactly remember exactly what she did or didn't do. But yeah, they were a very well-known family. Matter of fact, Billy, I remember when he first got married, I was the only guy down the corner. He came down on some Sunday, and I didn't even know what I was doing down there. I was just hanging around. I said, I'm going home. He come in, come on, we got to go in for a drink. All right, so what's the matter? So I just got engaged. Him and his girl, they were there, right? We all had a drink, and it was. And I don't know why, because we were all ordinary people. And if we had grown up somewhere else, we probably would have done all ordinary things. But there was some kind of magic down there. I don't want to even say magic, but some kind of something sociologically that melded with us.
Yeah,
And it was different. I've been to other places, and the West End was different.
Yeah. I thought about that a little bit,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, you take the ethnic groups, the Jews, the Italians, the Poles, are the three main ones.
Mm-hmm.
All of them were interested in family. And, you know, one factor that struck me as I left in that the striving that people have, the competitiveness in the rest of the country, didn't exist in the West End. It wasn't, or at least it wasn't at that level. You know, there was more of dealing with people for their values and what they did on their own. You go outside and you find people striving to get ahead to be better than others. And I don't think you found that in the West End.
Well, like I say, it was different, and when we had that reunion, we had 2,000 people in this reunion. We first started somewhere around '88, and the night Ritter service called me up and said, "How come we can get that many people into a reunion?" I said, "You know, they've had places all over, and you know, most people don't even talk to each other anymore."
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, "Well, if I knew, I'd bottle it and sell it, but
Right.
I have no idea."
I think that's part of it, you know. You took people for what they were, and you know, there's no trying to get ahead of the other person. It was just, and so that you could talk with the other, and like even getting together with you, or talking with Leo, or I met Vince Rosso. I ran into him in Aruba, and you know, there's a connection there.
Yeah.
And there's no putting on airs. There's no I'm better than you or anything of this sort.
Well, what it is like a passport. See? You'll see somebody standing like this. And then you go out from the West End, and the next thing you know, it's like, and they don't stop. It's just like,
well, you know, when I went up to Leo, I kind of kidded. He didn't know who I was.
Right.
And so I said to him, he's working out in the sun there, and I said, and I said, you're working out in the sun here? He says, yeah. He says, you must like it. I said, isn't it hot working out in the sun? He says, well, if I didn't like it, I wouldn't do it. You know, he didn't know who I was. And then I said, I'm Billy Corcoran. You know? And all of a sudden, he just opened up, and it was just like, there wasn't that veneer that was there. It was just, and it was almost a dramatic difference. You know?
Yeah,
so it was fun.
That's it. That's the way it works. So what are you going to do with this website? And give us a little more information about it. How you're going to expand it?
Three things. One is to, as much as possible, and this will develop over time, is to show life as it really was in the West End. I mean, you read they called it a slum, but it wasn't. It was a lie.
No, that was a set of things.
And that, you know, there were people living there, how they carried on their life, and this should be in the memory. This and people should have access to it. And I want to go into the history and, you know, what immigrant group came through, because that had an effect on us also.
Yeah.
And the second is to hold in the memory of the wrong that was done. Although I'm not angry about it. It was wrong, and you just say, yes, it's a fact. It was wrong, and these are the details.
Well, the big problem is that it was wrong. Okay, and everybody says it's wrong, but they say like, so what?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what burns me up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what? We didn't do it. I mean, that's really what burns me up. That's why it
rectified.
really got me moving on this. It was like, at the beginning, everybody said, 30 years ago, don't bother me, right?
Yeah.
But after a while, right, I put out the facts, put it out there, showed what happened, told everybody what happened, and we have gotten a lot of, you know, feedback from people, and they realized that, you know, it wasn't a slum. They didn't take this, and people weren't justly compensated. They were compensated, but they weren't justly compensated.
Right.
And there was a whole lot of things that went on that shouldn't have went on. Okay, you know, you don't realize the things that were available to us. There were all kinds of, you could buy distressed properties. Okay, like, you know, a house that didn't pay their taxes. You could buy them. They had a whole list of things that people that suffered eminent domain, right, could do, but nobody ever told us because they didn't want us to know. We'd be doing things that that would be taking away from other people.
Well, you know, you do something wrong like that, and then what happened? All the other communities now dig their feet in, and you can't make a move without full agreement of the neighborhoods.
Especially in Massachusetts. I was at a seminar, and Jane Goody, who was a noted architect in Massachusetts, she says, you know what's wrong? Every time we try to do development in this state, we have to cross every I. I mean, we have to dot every I, cross every T, jump through every hoop, And it's because of the West End. We made such a mess out of it.
Exactly, exactly.
And
Well,
it's
you know,
true.
they had to go, well, they didn't go through it with an open mind, and these people, you've got to treat them fairly, and they should have done it that way. They did it wrong. And, oh, let's
Exactly.
keep it under,
Yeah.
let's not let everybody know, and we can get this through before anything can happen.
The Flynn administration was pretty good. They came up to us and they said, look, we can't bring the West End back. We'll try to do whatever we can.
Yeah.
Okay, to alleviate whatever it was. Menino got in, and he just didn't feel that it was that important. Okay, so and those are most of the mayors that came from the outside of this, not outside the city, but the outer city, like Jamaica Plain, West Roxbury, you know, Hyde Park.
Where did Hines come from?
West Roxbury.
Yeah. I somehow get the feeling he's the
Yeah.
culprit.
I call them the suburban mayors
Yeah,
because they come
yeah.
from areas that are more suburban than citywide. And they always had this attitude like, oh, that place is, so what, who cares? I mean, they're living with lawns and everything,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they figure if you're not living with a lawn in front of your house, then it's got to be a slum, right?
Yeah.
It's,
But you read Gans and you say, you know,
Yeah.
he observed after a while how rich
yeah,
the pattern of life was in the West End, the excitement of living in the community. And those would, when I look at the pictures that you have of the streets, they evoke all the memories and very down deep, and it's pleasurable. But the third thing, and this is my own hypothesis, is that the values we had in the West End were as good as, if not superior, and could have made a big contribution to the rest of the United States as far as there wasn't a competitiveness. And I think the competitiveness is kind of a cancer in the U.S., and we didn't have that. You took people the way they were. The family, the importance of the family in the West End, it just isn't held as highly, I think, as, you know, observing outside the West End.
it's not being observed at all anymore. I view the central core of the United States, okay, is dissolving, and if there isn't something to stiffen it up, it's going to eventually become. We're going to dissolve. It's just going to.
Yeah.
I don't know how it'll end up because I'm not a sociologist and I have no idea. But I just know that it is dissolving, and hopefully that it'll stop and we can do something to bring it back.
Yeah, but I think that's one reason you get together with West Enders. You just feel comfortable because you had the same value system, and it's a value system. I think that was. You know, I think using the word slum is saying we're going to put you down. Well, sorry, no, our value system is as good. If not, you could learn from us. And I think they truncated the development in the West End. It was evolving, and you know, the Jews, the Italians, the Poles, they were learning that they needed education. They were learning this over time, and it was truncated, and they just dissipated it. It was so those three things, you know, showing how life really was, holding on to the memory of the wrong, and three, that the value system there was as good, if not better, than a lot of other places.
And the West End, like I say, up until about 1900, 1905, it was predominantly Irish. Then it became largely Jewish, and then it became largely Italian. But not all the Irish left when it became Jewish, and not all the Jewish left when it became largely Italian. There was, I guess this is just really anecdotal. I would figure that there was about 40% Italian, maybe 45% Italian when I was growing up, 20% Irish, 20% Jewish,
and the Poles were right there.
Poles were coming up.
Yeah.
Well, I'm half Lithuanian myself. So,
I know. Well,
so that's, you know, it's
Yeah.
and we sat there one day, Sonny Lepresti and myself. We sat there and we counted out the families. We came up with 23 families that were Italian on their father's side and Lithuanian on their mother's side. And I really don't know why that was.
Yeah.
Okay, I really don't know why that was.
Well, you look at the names in the schools, you can see predominantly Italian, then you see few Jewish and Polish and some Irish.
Right.
And the blend was good. The blend was good.
When they tore it down, there were 23 different ethnic and racial groups, or whatever you want to call them, segments, whatever they are. And by and large, they all got together. Now, that doesn't mean that Jews didn't hate the Goyim, and the Goyim didn't hate Jews, and Irish didn't hate Italians, and Italians didn't hate Irish. But in the West End, in other words, they more or less said, well, these are our people.
Yeah.
If I hate somebody, like, well, if I'm Jewish and I hate the Goyim, I hate them. Our people are all right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if you were Catholic, or you said, "Well, I hate Jews, but I hate them. These are our people. They're good." And after a while, when you're in that pot, and everybody bumps into each other over and over again, a lot of that just dissipates, even on the whoever's outside too.
You knew everybody's nationality.
And you knew what the foibles of whatever their groups were and whatever yours were.
Yeah.
And eventually it just sort of mingled in and melded.
Yeah. You know, I read, maybe it was from Gans, but in the reading I found that there was more strife between the Irish and the Jews when the Jews started coming in. Mm-hmm. But after that, that seemed to take care of it. And I think there wasn't the strife between groups, I think, when the Italians came in and when the Poles came in.
Well, I think part of it may have been that, see, that strife, that's turf. But from what I read about Lamazny, okay, Martin Lamazny, the West End Mahatma, the street is named after.
Oh, is that how you pronounce it? Okay.
Lamazny, yeah.
Okay.
We did oral history tapings, and I have it somewhere up there. Somebody from that era was talking, and he said Lamazny wouldn't let other groups pick on each other.
Yeah.
Lamazny said that you vote for me, that's it. I don't want anybody. If you're Jewish and you vote for me, that's fine. If you're Irish, you vote for me. But don't go picking on anybody else, right?
Right.
Unless they don't vote for me. Then you could probably then you could probably do whatever you wanted to do, right?
Yeah, that's one guy I'm interested in because I think he had a big effect on the temper, as you say, of the West
End.
End.
Have. It may have been a large part because, like I say, in those oral history tapings, a couple of the real old timers, they were talking about like the torchlight parades and all that kind of stuff. And part of it was Lamazny.
So I want to spend some time on the website and bring him in. And it's it'll be the nice thing about the website is you don't have to get everything done at once. It's evolving over time. But he's one guy I want to cover because I think his effect lasted long past his tenure.
He died in 1937, I believe. Of course, he wasn't beloved, as you know that poster we have up there. It says, "Get boss Lamazny, right? Vote for." Get rid of boss Lamazny, right?
But if he treated everybody as equals, that set the tenor there.
That you remember all those boarding houses up by Bowden Square?
Street?
Yeah, the end of Green Street up by Bowden Square.
Yeah.
He used to have what they call Philippine West Enders. And what Philippine West Enders were, when people moved out of the West End, he put their addresses into those places.
Yeah.
And when election time came, they came back and voted under their names in those boarding houses. So
they learned how to maintain power.
Well, that's one thing he was good at.
And
if they had paper ballots, so if you signed your X and you close up the ballot, if your X was in the wrong position, you would never get anything. Now, Lamazny would take care of you, I guess. He had what they call the Hendricks Club. And he would take care of you as long as you voted for him or you went to him, he'd get you a job or whatever.
Yeah.
And, well, that was a whole different era. People went to, it's not like now you call up a politician, they go, "Oh, we can't help you." They went looking for a slum in a good location. On the river, foot of Beacon Hill. And like I say, they stopped the street cleaning stopped, and garbage but garbage pickup became like spasmodic. And
well, it was a valuable site. If in retrospect you look at it, we had access to anything you'd want to have access to. The west side of the river, the Celtics, the North Station, Beacon Hill right up there.
Well, North Station was North Station. I mean, a lot of people look at North Station now, and it's like sort of a dead area. But North Station, when I was a kid, was dynamic.
Yes.
Dynamic. I mean, there were trains going in and out. They had taxi cabs all along the side. They had all kinds of freight trains coming in and going out of the back. Trains running all the time. It was 27 bars in the North Station area because I counted them one time. I went around. It was just people coming in and going out. It was a very somewhere.
They used to sell newspapers in those bars. And sell it in the corner of the North Station. And during rush hour they'd come through. It was dynamic.
It was a very dynamic place. And then it sort of people started moving to the suburbs and they built roads and people weren't taking the trains the same way they were. Train service started going down. So after a while, it started becoming a ghost town. And,
anyway, the website that I'm putting up, I hope that people check in on it, and as they see it start to develop, if they could add to it and send things to us, and we'll try to get things on. We'll try to make it an archive of the West Ender magazine that you put out, or paper that you put out, and try to have it as much as possible giving the truth of life in the West End. And if people can contribute, that would be well appreciated.
And it gives us a little bit of, not, what's the word I'm looking for, exposure on the western part of the United States.
You know, I think it's positive to say what was life there like. It's positive to say, you know, what our value systems were. And I feel very comfortable that they were good values.
Well, yeah, because a lot of famous people came out of the West End. I'm not just talking about the movie stars and those people. There were judges that came out, and there were some of the Redstone came out of the West End.
Yeah, I remember reading that.
Yeah, and so there are a whole host of people.
He had a little shady career there, Sumner, didn't he?
Well, no, shady in the sense that he used Doc Sagansky's money to build his. But that's, you know, he himself was not shady. He always. It was just that where he got his money, which is what wasn't unusual. A lot of people got their money from Shylocks in those days to start a lot of businesses. If we had to shut down every business that was started with Shylock money, because banks generally didn't give money to poor West Enders or poor North Enders. Or,
we didn't have access to the financial system where I find it, you know, now I do, and people are coming after me, yes, borrow money from us, you know.
Well, you realize the old saying, right?
Yeah.
They only lend you money if you don't need it.
Right.
Like I tell everybody, you know, politics is a little different. So in those days, you had two crews were out, one putting up signs, one taking them down. And that's the way politics was. And everybody, and anybody from that era realizes it. And most people look at politics nowadays. And
you have to make compromises, right?
There is no self. They really don't care about the constituents. All they care about is the money. If they have the money to run, that's all they care about. They don't care if if you like them or don't like them. You know, they'll say whatever popular. I tell people, if tomorrow you had to be a right-wing supremacist to win, I said you would see more right-wing supremacists out there saying all those things. I mean, that's just
tell people what they want to hear.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. But that's part of politics, you know. Because sometimes, I mean, if you look at the focus of a senator, you know, the hot light is on them, and they know that people are coming and reading them with their own biases. And if they say something that's a trigger for this, they'll get. So they have to be very neutral and sometimes appear inconsistent.
Especially the papers have also, the newspapers have become a separate entity. In the old days, they didn't have the kind of power they have now. Now they can rip you apart over seemingly innocent issues. I mean, like that Dean, I never figured that Dean would, you know, that yell. I looked at it after, I couldn't believe that that was what the fuss was all about. It just didn't make sense.
It wasn't too bad, but they were almost like looking for any failing. Well, when Muskie cried on in the Manchester Guardian.
Well, that at least I can understand, because that you know that's a weakness. Nobody wants to see a weak president, especially you know in a Cold War era. You know. Anyways, we're coming to the end, and I guess we have to wrap this up. Thank you both for coming.
Oh, I enjoyed it.
And I'll see you at the next West End Video Newsletter.
Okay. Great.
And that's it.
That'll be fun.